house is an asset or a liability dependent on if it's paying you or not. So you've got your money together. Should you buy it to live in, or should you buy your first buy-to-let property? People found it crazy that I actually had 14 investment properties before I bought my own house to live in. And up until that point, I just rented a room in one of my rent-to-rent portfolio. Now, people were like, how crazy is that you're investing in property and yet paying out rent? Now, a bit weird because I was paying rent to me as a business, right? But still, it's kind of a weird concept. Now, that's not to say I was right to do that. I'm probably a little bit too extreme, where every time I saved up a bit of money, which is bloody hard work, right? And then it's like, well, I could buy my own house, or I could buy another property and that will pay for my car. And then I saved up again. And it's like, I could buy this house and then pay my mortgage, or I could buy this property and then I could rent another room out or another house out, right? And so my mindset was probably a little bit extreme. But this is kind of irrelevant, dependent on how much money you've got. So you can actually, at the time of filming, buy a house with a 5% deposit. If you have only got a 5% deposit and let's say you've got the fees on top, then really you're at best going to be buying your property to live in. So let's assume you're watching this because you've actually built up a bigger deposit and you're kind of thinking, let's say you've got enough for a 30% deposit and you're kind of going, well, do you know what? I could buy a property to live in, or I could buy a buy-to-let investment. Which one should I do? And I'm going to help you really break it down. Scenario one, you can probably, let's say you've got, let's say it's £200,000 house and you've got £60,000, which is 30%, right? So you've got 60 grand. Now what you could do is you could just purchase the property. The problem with that is you're probably spending, this is very rough, 50,000 from that on the deposit, and then the remainder, £10,000 on fees. So you're going to have stamp duty, etc. And then of course you've got £150,000 in debt, which is the mortgage, and then that is going to end up costing probably in your personal name about 3% on interest, but whatever it is on a year-by-year basis. Let's say you get a 25-year mortgage and you're going to end up paying, I don't know, let's say £750 per month on a repayment mortgage, which, by the way, not too bad, and you own the asset and it's likely to go up over time. If you want to be conservative, very long-term average of 5% per annum, so it's going to go up in value £10,000 a year, at least over the long term. Now that's option one. It's what most people would do. I'm not saying it's wrong, okay? But let's look at a different situation. Scenario two, you've got the £60,000. Now, more than likely with £60,000, you're likely to be putting down 25% deposits. Again, very rough figures, so forgive me if I'm out a little bit. If you bought a £100,000 house, you're going to end up putting down £25,000 as a deposit, let's say plus £5,000 in fees. And then of course you'll notice that that only adds up to £30,000. So you can do that times two. So you've got two properties rented out worth £100,000 each. So you've got the £200,000 worth of properties. You're still getting that 5% capital growth, so the £10,000 is getting increased in the value. Let's just net that off because it's the same as before, really, right? You own this house, it's increasing value. You own these two houses, if they're in similar areas, earning you the money. The difference here, though, is they are likely, if you're renting them out and got good tenants, going to be kicking out an amount of money. Let's just say net after your mortgage interest costs, your insurance, your voids, your maintenance, your management. Let's say after all of those costs, you are netting £250 a month each. Okay, add that together, that is £500 per month. Times that by 12, you're getting £6,000 per year on that basis. Now, is that enough to pay your rent somewhere else? No. Let's say, for example, you're renting somewhere else at $750 a month, but that's $9,000 a year you're paying in rent, but it is massively mitigating your costs in that. And so you're likely renting somewhere right now anyway. If you're considering this, you've just reduced your cost by £6,000, plus you're getting the $10,000, plus you're building up your savings. It's not a bad alternative. And honestly, out of the two, because of my mindset, and that's really important to say, it is down to your personal situation. Because of my mindset and my opinion, I'd probably go for option 2. But there is a third way you might want to consider. Number 3 is something to consider if you are focused on having a home where you are building the equity, but you don't mind living in a bit of a site. Okay, and there's reasons for this. So instead of putting your £60,000 into a 30% deposit, you can get currently 5% deposit mortgages. If not, 10% fairly easy with a 2-year ERC. An ERC is an early redemption charge, okay? Which means if you sell the property or refinance the property within 2 years, that would mean that you will pay a charge for it. Instead of putting down £60,000, let's say you put down, I'm using this as a random example, you maybe go for a nice area. Make sure you can afford the monthly payments and all of that. This is not financial advice. Let's say, for example, you go for a £250,000 property. Now, the cool thing about a £250,000 property is it's below £300,000. Obviously, it's not the cool thing, but you won't pay stamp duty on it. So instead of putting 30% down, you put 5% down on this, and you are going to get the nicest place, the nicest location that you can afford, but an absolute shit heap of a house. Okay, it is barely mortgageable. That is what we're aiming about. Just good enough to put a mortgage on it, but not good enough where you'd really want to live there. So 5% is £12,500. Because you're not paying stamp duty, you're really only going to pay broker and legal fees, which is another £2,500. So you're in for £15,000. You've then got £45,000 to put into the property. I am talking a proper fixer-upper. Now let's assume, making numbers up, you can find something where you put the £45,000 into it and you increase the value of this property. So you've bought it for 250, you've put 45 grand into it. Let's say it's worth 375,000, which, by the way, is roughly the numbers on a property that I've just done. So you've now got a property worth 375,000 on there, okay? Now, you've already put in 250,000 in there. You also had another 2,500. I'm not taking account of the 12.5 because that's within the 250. So you got 2,500 plus you spent 45,000 on the property. Adding that all up, £77,500 before any fees. And what I mean by that is if you chose to refinance the property, you could refinance that, get roughly 77 grand out. Let's say after refinancing fees, maybe you're at £73,000 in your pocket. You've managed to keep the property. You live in the house as you like it, as you love it. And now you've got about 70 odd grand, which is more than you had before, in your pocket, ready to start investing. Opportunity number 2 is you could sell the property, get the profit plus your original 60,000, which now means you've got 137,500. Again, apologies if I mess one of the numbers up there. It's more for figurative purposes. And then you can go again and you can either do the same model on an even better area, or you can maybe go buy the home you want and a couple of buy-to-lets. Now, if I had this option, it would really depend on my money-making ability and how slow it is, or how long it took me to build up that original deposit. Now, here's the real kick. the really amazing thing. Because you decided to live in the property, you got personal dwellings relief. What that means is you pay 0% capital gains tax. If you do this as an investment, any profit you make, you pay capital gains tax, which is 18 or 38%. Crazy, right? Depending on your income tax. But because you live in it, the personal dwellings relief that you get, you pay absolutely no tax whatsoever. So in general, if you're trying to build this up and trying to decide investment or personal, why not do both together? Pay no tax. And by the way, you can do this again and again and again. I know people that now live in multi-million pound houses, starting from a 150 grand house, just by doing this year after year after year. And they're still in their original jobs, which is crazy, right? They've become net worth millionaires, all in their house, of course, just by following this strategy. So I'm not giving financial advice. This is just 3 potential options that you could implement. For me, I'd probably find this mid-street variation and be a bit patient with it, with option number 3, where I'd live in the property, I'd learn from the refurbishment, develop it out, I'd feel perfectly comfortable living in that situation, making my profit, having my home, paying no tax, and having 2 buy-to-let properties, getting me one step further towards my personal financial freedom. But hey, it's just my opinion. What I'm really interested in is yours. So let me know in the comments, what one would you do? Option 1, 2, or 3? Or indeed, if you've got your own option, let me know how you would approach it. If you're completely new to property and you want to find out more, this is definitely the channel for you. I would love it if you want to return by subscribing and hitting the notification bell so you don't miss out. And on the way to the next video, it helps tremendously if you lightly destroy the like button, and I'll see you in the next video.